Welcome to RainierAvenueRadio.World as we celebrate Black History Month. Tonight is Africa Night. Yes, we've been celebrating all month long. 20 events in 28 days was the goal, and I think that we are on the 26th event of our month-long celebration of Black History Month. And this is going to be something special. You know, we've talked about a number of different things, and I know a few of you out there have tuned in for what we've done. So whether you're listening on our website, tune it via our audio stream at RainierAvenueRadio.World, whether you're listening via the TuneIn app, or whether you're watching us on our Facebook page at RainierAvenueRadio.World on Facebook. Thank you for tuning in and joining us and being part of our celebration of Black History Month. Well, we've talked about a number of different things. We did a special show on experiencing Blackness in Rainier Valley. That was quite popular and turned out to be a wonderful conversation. We've also done shows on Black History Seattle, where we had some folks who lived, experienced, and were part of making the changes that helped Black Seattle become what it was. We did a show on education that we called Education Night, where we did a very holistic approach to education and what that meant. So we talked about early education, K through 12 education, higher learning. We had someone here from the MESA program, math, engineering, science. We had someone here as well from HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities. We had someone here from College Access Now. In addition to that, Donald Watts from Watts Basketball came by to tell us and share his story about the importance that sports, athletics, and health and fitness play in education as well. And in addition to that, we also had Dennis Weaver from Change Your Food, Change Your Life come by to talk to us about the importance of what you put into your body and how that helps you with education. And if that wasn't enough, Mayor Durkin also shared with us her vision of Promise Seattle, where students who graduate from Seattle public high schools will automatically be given 2 years of college at participating public universities. And so we had the opportunity to share quite a bit of information from a well-rounded resource of folks who are committed to ensuring that those who are looking for opportunity have it, and then folks who are in that business and in that genre right now. And again, I remember one of the specific folks, the gentleman that we had from the University of Washington, actually he's at the UW, but he works with K through 12 students in a mentoring program to help them be prepared for what it means to go to college. And so those are some things that people didn't know existed. So thanks to the University of Washington for coming down here. Thanks to the MESA program. Thanks to Change Your Food, Change Your Life, Donald Watts. And we also talked about charter schools and what those have to offer. We talked about private schools, and we talked about public schools. So yeah, just a big night on Education Night. Coming up on Monday, we have Social Services, Social Justice Night. We have 20 different social service or social justice organizations that will be here to tell you about the services that they offer, the services that they provide, how they can be of service, again, to you and the communities that we live in. We also have social justice organizations here who will be essentially coming to tell us about what they advocate for and who they advocate for. So if you'd like to know more about who these entities are out there advocating, come on down. Maybe you want to be a part of something. It'll be an opportunity for you to firsthand talk to people who are in there and advocating and have decided that they want to take action against something. So it's social service, social justice night on Monday. And then we're going to end it up with Health Night on Tuesday, sponsored by POCAM, where we'll be talking about the importance of health in the Black community. Our keynote speaker will be Bridget Hempstead, who will be leading the discussion on health disparities in the Black community. This is sponsored by POCAN, People of Color Against AIDS Network. They are the sponsor for that night. So special thanks to POCAN. And we've got some other folks who will be joining us for Health Night as well. I'll go more into that. But right now, I'm excited about Africa Night. And I think that it's really important that as we celebrate Black history, we talk about Africa, but not just perspective from African Americans, but Africa itself and how we are intrinsically intermingled in our relationship with one another and our history together, whether it is actually on this particular continent or from the continent from which we all Okay. So I want to start off by introducing the folks who are here with me, just a pillar in our community, a person who, has for years made sure that folks knew and aware of their connection to the mother country, Africa. And you took this upon a mantle upon yourself before it was popular. And I'm not saying that there wasn't ever a time where it wasn't important and it wasn't popular, but you made sure that you kept this in the forefront, not only to African Americans, but to all people, our culture. So, Afua, thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
Well, I gave you a little detail about some of the, who you are in the community thing, and we'll talk a little bit more. But just really quickly tell us about yourself and your history here.
Well, I'm blessed to be here, and thank you for inviting us. But yes, my name is Afua Kouyate, and I am very happy to share the information about the connections and the roots that brought me here. But I am a Seattleite, and I also live in the Rainier Valley, so I'm glad that Rainier Radio is happening. I could just basically walk down the street, and then I can just talk about some of my childhood memories of being in Africa. Afua Kouyate Adefua Cultural Education Workshop is a nonprofit organization, and we've been around since 1985. And I want to be able to talk more about that and some of the things that we're doing now in the community and some of the things that we're hoping for. So hopefully our viewers will be able to connect to our history and our future.
All right. Thank you, Afua. And our keynote speaker tonight, Lamin Jatta, founder, executive director of the Kunta Kinteh Foundation, and then also 9th generation descendant of Kunta Kinteh, and also direct descendant of Mr. Alex Haley, the writer of the book Roots, as well. And we're going to hear from you about your personal journey, about how you started the Kunta Kinteh Foundation and why you did. But let's get started, man, just by letting you introduce yourself really quickly here.
Thank you so much, brother. I don't say brother Tony, I say brother. This is a great blessing, to be here, to stand here at my own place. We had a conversation before, and I can't wait, to share to the viewers, who am I, where I came from, my story, my family story. So that is what I'm here for. And I love the name Africanite. We all looking back, you talk about, Black History Month, you're talking about Africa, so thank you so much for, acknowledging that, also people that don't know that, putting the dreams and living in them, about knowing who they are. This is what it's all about, celebrating Black History Month, celebrating Black people, our history, our culture. So I'm glad that to have people that also embrace that, people like Afro, embrace the culture part, and being from Africa, that means a lot, with your leadership too. So thank you for having us here.
All right. And also joining us tonight is Mr. Jim Tharpe, who is also the owner of the Jim Tharpe Antiquities Collection, which is a big part of our museum that we've had here all month and will be here through the end of Tuesday. So it's still not too late to come down and see the wonderful collection of historical artifacts and also pieces of interest that we have in our museum here. Some stuff that you just won't see anywhere else because it's coming out of people's homes. And we do also thank Delbert Richardson for his contributions from the Traveling History Museum that we have here as well. In addition to that, we also had a couple artifacts from the Rainier Valley Historical Society. And so we just have a nice little collection in our museum of artifacts and historical things that have impacted, well, I won't just say African Americans, but American history. And one of those is also the quilt collection that Mr. Tharpe and his family have owned for years, where we discuss the quilt codes and the impact that had, a phenomenal network of communications that was kept secret, that was put together by slaves to assist other slaves from running away, and then assist other slaves who were running away to find safe houses, to find freedom, to know if this was a good place or where to go, just a number of different things. That's a whole nother conversation that we'll have when we talk. And then your family carried this tradition of quilting forward and the messaging within these quilts, and then just carried the tradition of quilting forward. And you have, again, quilts that are over 100 years old.
Yes. First of all, I'd like to say I'm excited to be here. I'm in a situation where what actually kept me involved with my family quilts based on roots, his family. So it's kind of like a combination of the two, where had his family not created this book where I could, and movie that I happened to see and understood where I was coming from, where my family was coming from. At that point, I made, reference to my parents that I wanted to have these quilts. And the quilts go back to 1860, during coming out of slavery, and up to 1970. Fortunately enough, my family was able to keep all these quilts together, and eventually I received them. So standing here, speaking with you, is like meeting a brother elsewhere, where my quilts have been bringing me to, shall we say, understand my family and where we came from, literally from slavery, to you, where you were one of those that were a part of it. Like myself, we were fourth, fifth generation, obviously from slavery, but we both have something in common. And on that basis alone, everything else I possibly done with the quilts and showing them, where Amazon had Tony there and myself not long ago, to being in the community, trying to show these people quilts. You are the essence of what it was all about. And I thank you personally for that.
All right, well, we're going to get started here. So, Lamin, I want to start with you first. All right, so Afua and Jim, if you want to have a seat, and I'm going to pull up a chair for you. Lamin. All right. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
All right. Well, let's get started. I mentioned the Kunta Kinteh Foundation, so I want to start at the beginning. I want to start at roots. For anyone who may not be familiar with one of the greatest stories ever told, one of the most popular stories in the history of the world, making that name one of the most known and recognized names in the world. Let's start with the story of Alex Haley and roots. And I can give some background on that as well. But if you would you prefer, or do you want to give the background on that? I would prefer
the background of roots.
The background on roots.
Let's start with Alex Haley. We talk about Black History Month.
Who is your uncle?
Yeah, he's my uncle. So he's part of Black History Month, and he began to be here in America. He was American, was born here. But the story also is something that brings us all together, which is the Africa side. The man that we all share, that we all are descendants of him, was Kunta Kinteh. He's from Gambia, West Africa. He's from Jufre, which is the northern part of Gambia. It's a very small, tiny place. And back then, maybe you're talking about like 300 people live in that village. I struggle with that, even myself, because that's a time that we used to play in an area where slaves, it's a dungeon, where slaves, they kept them there.
A dungeon?
Yeah. So they put like hot houses, like small little houses, so where they capture slaves, so they go around in the bush. Every time they capture the slaves, they put them in there until they get the load of the ship, and then they will take them to the island.
And this was in the area where you played in growing up?
We play on there, but every time you play inside, you have the goosebumps. Something happened there. Something was from there. But as a child, we're stubborn. We always still go up there. But I usually will excuse myself all the time, and I will go in a place where I ask myself a question. what exactly happened here? That's the transition of my family telling me the story, you know. But then, without not knowing who is exactly this man is, and why the story matters to my family so much, why they always talk about him so much. And I knew when I was young, I always hear that I'm a hero. I always hear that I'm a royalty. I always hear that, you know, every time my grandma always would pull me because we play. Sometimes we did a, you know, game, you know, like a acting class in schools and stuff. Then I will act like a drunk man, or I will act like, you know, I went to steal something. So they never liked that part. Even though I'm playing, it's acting, but they never liked that. They said, if you want to do acting, always act like you are a royal man. If they don't give you that position, never do it, because you are a king and you are a royal. I was like, why am I a royal? Why am I a king? You know, to me, I'm just normal like any other child. But to them, we are different people. So every day, that's a story that keep narrating to us. What makes the Kunta Kinteh story so unique? You know, which I'm going to go through that later on. And I want people to understand how important people in Seattle, around the world, how important this show is, this program is, Africanite. Because I want people to really know the Kunta Kinteh story. And I want to let people know also the story of Alex Shelley, what it means to him, what he did, what he has completed, what he have left for us, the legacy that he left for us in this world, that I am living on with that legacy. I'm carrying on that legacy, that I've never dreamed that before, that I will be here today talking to you. But through the ancestors, the founding fathers, he's among those founding fathers, because he lived for 12 years of research to research all the way to his family in Africa. So before I go deeply in the story, people that don't know who I am, I've been in Seattle for quite a while. I go back and forth. A lot of people in the audience knows me. You know, I do a lot of stuff with Afua. He came to my events. He always support, you know, from beginning of this event, you know, my foundation. Paul Jackson, you know, was among a part of the people that when I first started from scratch, you know, who gave not only their time, but resources and so many, you know, back and forth, you know, showing me this city, showing me around. So I thank so much for that. You know, so from Gambia, you know, Lamin Jatta, that's my name. You know, I'm just saying that people that don't know, they can have the opportunity today to know who is Lamin Jatta, a 9th-generation descendant of Kunta Kinteh. I came from a village called Jufre. My grandmother is Binta Kinteh, the 7th-generation sister of Kunta Kinteh, who narrated the story to Alex Shelley in 1967. That was the first trip Alex Shelley visited Gambia, you know, and it took him 12 years of research to meet us in Gambia. Kunta Kinteh's story, our great-grandparents, they migrated from Mali in the Manding Empire, you know. So after there, the father...
And I'm just gonna, because I want to do this periodically. So when you say the Mali Empire, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but just as we're having this, the Mali Empire, describe what that was.
I'm a Mandingo. So Mali is a place in West Africa. Is one of the biggest, back then it was one of the biggest empire, where most of the warriors and the strong Africans, especially Mandingos, you have Mandingos and have Bambaras, and you have Susus. So came from that area. So we came from a Manding Empire, our ancestors. So Gambia, Ghana, Senegal, because the empire, there's a war happened in the empire. So everybody scattered, they immigrate. Some migrate because, not a war, because Kunta Kinteh, my great-grandparents, they migrate not because of war. They migrate because they go other places and teach people with the Islamic religion. So they travel from one area to another. And some of the people also migrate because of the drought, because Mali is inside a desert. So that's how the empire also, there's a war happen. So everybody become like a leader. So some travel to other part of Africa, they settle there. And then that's how they found their own settlement. They conquer the area. They become like rulers on that side. So anyone that come and join them, they take over the area. So it happens so many different ways and so many different things. So Kunta Kinteh, great-grandparents, his father and his, grandfather migrated from Mali. Then they went to Gambia. Straight from Senegal, after Senegal, they were in Gambia. So they settled in Jufre. When they came to Jufre, they saw the island and they see the water. They know that that place will be a settled place for them. So they settled there. Without not even having Kunta Kinteh, back then they never know. The father wasn't even married. But when he came, he married in Jufre. He married a Binta Keba. So before, in our tradition, which I just newly got married less than a month ago. So, we did that in our culture even today. Before you get married, you go to a fortune teller. Fortune tellers, they tell you, they prophesize your future with that woman. They prophesize the future, is that a good woman or is going to be a bad woman? The woman going to bring you a good luck or you're going to bring a good luck? So they tell you.
Do they do the same thing to the man or just the woman?
The woman family will do to the man too, without not you knowing. This is something that goes under the table. It's a secret thing. So both sides will do. How she will do, her family will do it to a man, then the man family also will do it to the woman. So if something really gonna happen between those two people, the prophecy, they will tell you right there that something is gonna happen between those two people. So within the process, Kunta Kinteh and then father, the mom don't even know because it's a secret thing. So the father knows and the grandfather. So they told them that you're going to have a child. This woman is your woman. Marry her. But you're going to have a child with this woman, which is going to be well known. And this child is going to be a warrior. And he's going to be a king if he stays here. And this child also is going to be taken away. They don't know anything about slavery back then. But African tradition, we believe in prophecy a lot. That's the only thing we have. Remember, Africa, we are not Muslim, we are not Christian. We are free-thinking people, naturally, from God. That's how we think. Our brain is so open up. So when they told him that, it's like, it's going to be going away. You will never get to see the child also to benefit you. When he becoming a man, he's going to be gone. And he's not going to be dead.
This is so what you're hearing, if you are a fan of Roots, if you're a fan of the history, this is the pre-Roots history that you're getting firsthand. And if you know what Roots was about, it is about the history of oral traditions being passed down. Yeah. And that's what sustained the story to write Roots. So the information that you're getting is the same. It is reliable. It is the information that has been passed down.
Yes.
And so it was prophesied that Kunta Kinteh would be born to these two, and the things that you're telling me were revealed at that time.
Yeah. So this story.
One more. You're listening to RainierAvenueRadio.World. This is our special celebration of Black History Month. And if you are just tuning in, the gentleman that you're listening to is Lamin Jatta, who is the president, co-founder of the Kunta Kinteh Foundation, worldwide foundation, and also ninth generation descendant of Kunta Kinteh and descendant of Alex Haley. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Go ahead. We were at that point where you were just saying it was prophecy.
Yeah, it was a prophecy because everything I talk about, it passed down. It was narrated to me since I was very little. And not only me, entire family. And the same way it was narrated to Alex Haley, which we will come to that part. But this is how it was. Everything we said, we had to always say in the truth. Because that's how it happened. So when the prophecy that, the child is going to be born. And then they already told him the name that is going to be given to him when he's born. His real name is Kairaba. In Mandinko, Kairaba means great peace. That's a peace. Kairaba Kunta Kinteh. His name means united. A unique and united. and power. So when they told him that, he said, you have to give him these names. And then the father, it was a later on, he never take it like, he take it serious, but he kept it secret. Only 2-3 people that knows is the fortune teller, the grandfather, and him. So then after he got married, then Kunta was born. And the Kunta was given that name. When Kunta Kinteh was born, it was a great day in the village of Jofre. Everybody was able to tell that something happened to this village that it has never happened because of the signs and because of the things that, they seen. According to the story that was narrated to me, these things that they have seen, nobody have never seen those kind of things before. So people keep it very serious. So it became a special baby. It was guarded, it was taken very seriously. So the father said, oh, this is the fortune, the child they were telling me, this is the child. It was later on also, when he was growing up, they see what the things that he's been doing. Every time they said if they tell him to do something, he would double it up. The things that, impossible things that people will not do, he would do those stuff. In Africa, it's a very scary area. Not to scare you not to go. But Afua been to Africa, so she knows Africa very well. Africa is a place that is very dark. It's a very dark continent. Darkest means that there's a lot of secrets. I say God live in Africa. Because there's a lot of secrets in Africa that if you did not go there and then you do your research, you will never find out those stuff. But Africa has so many secrets and so many stuff are there. So when they tell you something, it's so easy to just scare. Don't go to that tree. It's not easy to go there. Don't touch that tree. Don't take a shower at nighttime. It's not good for you. Don't walk, with no clothes on. It's not. So they tell you so much stuff because you are in Africa. Nighttime you hear a lot of things. If you pay attention, have you paid attention when you go? You hear things. You hear monkeys. You hear birds. You hear so many things at night. So sometimes you can get out on that dark and you say, "Wow, Africa is the most beautiful and the most interesting place that I can ever been to, and you can ever see." You will tell that to yourself. If nobody even telling you, you're gonna be like, so you can do your research on your own. You will know the continent that you live in is so special and so interesting. There's so much stuff to learn. So many things are there that is not around anywhere in this planet, So when he was taken, as every male child in Africa, they take you to a circumcision field. At the age 16, we call it a bush school, which they
You call it a what?
Bush school, like a bush. A bush school means it's an ancient African, tradition and a language that they teach you how to respect elders. They teach you how to become a man. They teach you about things that you never know before to get to know. How to become, they want to also, that's the place they know who is going to be the next warrior or the next king of the village. They will know on that process. So Kunta Kinteh was able to go for that. Among all the kids there, he was able to be the only man who laughed during the process. The rest of the kids, they all cry. So that's when they know that, because they circumcise you manually with no painkiller. Here they take you to hospital, they'll put some steroid in your body, you will not feel it. But in Africa, they'll cut you with knife, special knife. With the pain, you'll be bleeding. So all the kids cry except him. On that night, he was crowned as the Mandinka warrior that they've been waiting for, because Jufre has never had a warrior before. So Kunta Kinteh became the first warrior, first and ever warrior was crowned in my family. Was only him. So what makes it so interesting, because after the timing was so short, all the great things that he's been doing and interesting things, people paying attention on him and the things that he do, then he was also been taken away as a slave. He was taken away as a slave because he was not a coward. but he defended himself and defended others. And he refused to run. Back then, when you see a white, we call them tubab. A tubab means a white. Light skin in Africa, we run. They call you a devil. There's a devil here, they will run. Sorry, James. So they run. He did not run because we never seen white before with the long hair, blonde hair, and with green, blue eyes and all that. So it was kind of interesting thing. So he never ran. He stayed and they fought with them. And that's how he was overpowered. And he was taken to an island where it's called James Island.
James Island?
James Island. This island, nobody has ever lived there before. Africans has never lived there. Because, again, in Africa, there are places that you never touch. There's a place that you cannot be there. But the only people that live in that island is the, slave masters. And during the slavery time. So the slaves, they live there. So they look Kunta Kinteh. Entire village, the father, they looked for him. They couldn't find him. Remember, the fortune teller told him, the father, what's going to happen. So they run back to the same fortune teller because they couldn't find where Kunta Kinteh and some of his friends, where they went. And then he went back to the fortune teller. The fortune teller said, your son has been taken away. There are people that I've seen that there are people that captured your son, but he will never come back again. He will be gone. So after that, everybody started crying. They said, but there's a hope. And he said, where is the hope? He said, there's an island not far from us. That's where your son is. It's 3 kilometers from the mainland. Did you see the island when you go? You were there, yeah. It was 3 kilometers from the mainland. So they look at the island, the king, there's one king in the area. It's called the Sonkos. They are the kings in the area. So they order 500 men from Jufre and the entire Nyomi. The Nyomi is the district. The name of the district is called Nyomi, Upper Nyomi. So we're on the upper side of the country. So they order 500 men to go rescue Kunta Kinteh and others. Because Kunta is the warrior. So the people in the village said, our warrior cannot be taken away because now this is our only last hope that we have. There's no warrior has been ever crowned in this village. The only man that has been crowned, we cannot let it go. So 500 men all went to that boat. They never made it back. They were fired by cannons with the slave masters. They killed all of them. That was the last hope Kunta Kinteh and his followers have. That's the story of Kunta Kinteh. That's where it ends right there. It never ends with my family. The village now, it become like forbidden for slavery in Jufre. You and I, from Jufre, will never discuss about what happened to slavery. Because it become like now, the awareness people know now, they've been kidnapped, they've been taken away. So it's the danger and fear, frustration. Nobody talk about slavery.
Hey, James, would you mind grabbing us a couple waters, please? Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So Kunta Kinteh, that's how the family now says, we're going to honor Kunta Kinteh. From now on, anybody that came from this family will learn his story and his braveness, and his story will live on in this village and this country and Africa. So from that day,
unbeknownst to him about this whole thing that was going to take place all the way across, but there was still at that point in time in Jofre,
yeah,
Jofre, the initiative set forth that this would be remembered.
Yeah.
Wow.
So in Jofre, it passed on.
I just want to introduce you again for folks who may not. Okay. If you just tuned in, this is Lamin Jatta, 9th generation descendant of Kunta Kinteh, relative again to Alex Haley, and also the founder and president of the Kunta Kinteh Foundation, known worldwide. And yeah, so what you essentially told us was, for most of us, something that we probably had no information of, how the story before Roots. that we know as roots, and then the after story on the other side of the continent.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
So the family keep the story on, and they keep passing down from one generation down to another generation up to today. That's why I was able to understand who I am, the culture and the history and the story. So these three things is very big, fundamental to my family. You have to know who you are, know your culture, and know your story. So we live on with that story. So my grandmother, and it was later on, the same fortune teller also says, when Kunta Kinteh leave the Jufre, doesn't mean that that's the end of him. His story will live on worldwide. Where he is going also, one day his descendants there, his kids there, will come back to this village. So this is something that is very interesting. When my grandma told me, I was so little, I was 5 years old, when I remember that actually still. She said, you know, because that's something that they all believe, that one day the descendants are coming back. They live on that day, they live on that. It's like a returning of Jesus Christ coming back one day. You see how people, Christian faith, you know, they believe that Jesus is coming back. Some people already knows that it's going to happen. They were like that. They believe that someday the descendants are coming back to this village. So my grandma said they used to imagine, what will they do? They're going to kill like lambs, and they're going to slaughter like cows. They're going to make big drums, you know, they're going to party, they're going to cry. She said they used to imagine that when they were young. Alexeli became the only first person from the descendants of Kunta Kinteh from America, came all the way to Jufre. Remember, the story live on with the people in Jufre. Alexeli have no clue. He have no idea who are these people. He never even know. But Kunta Kinteh, being a warrior, when he came to America, he never let his story die. He fought for who he is. He keep his name. He keep his country. He keep his village. He keep his parents. He live on. Every slave after slave after slave, everybody that goes from every plantation, they carry his name with them. The African man, they call him African. Because the others, they don't want to associate themselves as African because of fear. They don't want to be like, even they are slave. It's like, what's wrong with the African man? So it does live on. Because he keep constantly where he came from. Gambia Bolongo. Gambia was used to call the Gambia Bolongo because the reason why they call it Gambia Bolongo, Bolongo means the river, the lake. So today, because of that was a very small lake in Gambia who flowed to the Atlantic Ocean, today it become the River Gambia. It's so big today, and they call the Gambia. T-H-E, the Gambia. So because of that. So, and Alexeli took him for many years because his grandmother also narrated the story, passed down through from generation down to his grandmother. The grandmother, one day they were sitting around in the porch, and then they were sitting down, and then said, you see that riverside right there? It looks like the riverside from your ancestors crossed from the Atlantic to the America. If anyone that says that, he gets so interested. He said, can you say that again? Repeat it. The grandma repeated. That's how it get to Alexeli. Back then, he have no money, he have nothing. But it took him 12 years of researching his family. Today, how many people are willing to do that? 12 years to find for the family. All over the world, he traveled there. When he came to Gambia in 1967, he came with the message, and he came with the story, and he said his side of the story. Like the way you're giving me an opportunity, he said, we want to hear from you. Because people that don't know Kunta Kinteh's story, you talk, let them hear, because it would be better for me to say it than you introducing me to say on my behalf. People may gonna think like you backing me up. You understand what I'm coming? So when Alexeli came, they said, we want to hear what you're here for. Momently he mentioned the name Kunta Kinteh, they jump right there. My grandma told me that they jump all over him. They grab him. They all cry. The drums after, they all cry, and Alexele cry. He said, I found my roots. These are my people. He went back. That was later on. So now we are famous now in worldwide, because what the story that I've been living, that one day his descendants are coming back. My grandma told me something that is still stick with me, because it bring the hate between them. Because when Alexele left, nobody know what he was doing. He left, he never come back. So now we are popular. Remember, when you go to Gambia, they call you Tubab. Have you ever been called Tubab? Because you know why? You speak different language.
Oh, so they call me Tubab.
They will call you Tubab, a white person, because of you speak American language, your lifestyle, your way of behavior. You can't blame them, because you are born here. It's education part. I know I've seen brothers and sisters that have been to Gambia, they call them Tubab. They got mad after they find out what it means. They get really mad. It's like, don't call me Tubab, I'm not a Tubab. But you know, you speak, I have accent. You have American accent. So when you and I go to Africa, it's different. They're gonna be all over you. I am from there. I'm not gonna have that. You know, even though they love and appreciate me, but they're gonna give you more love and appreciation. You know why? Because they think you're gonna give them more money than I do. You know?
My guest, again, Lamin Jatta. This is Africa Night. And again, the purpose of us having this night in celebration of Black history is to help you make a connection. Doesn't matter what your ethnicity is, your culture is, your demographic is. Black History Month is celebrated to acknowledge not only the, you know, even at the core though, the existence of the contributions of Black Americans to the history of this country. And so that history extends beyond the things that happened when we were here. Yes, in 1926, Carter G. Woodson decided that it was about time that what African Americans, what Blacks, what Negroes, what colored folks, what coons at the time they were being called, were contributing to this country needed to be documented, needed to be part of our history, needed to be part of American history, because there was nothing credited. So things that were done by Black Americans, things that were created by Black Americans, the credit was given to their white slave masters. Now, as we began to move forward without any of this history, Carter G. Woodson said, well, who are we going to be if we don't have a history to fall back on?
Yeah.
Which is something that your family knew a long, long, long time ago.
Yeah. So going back to after Alexele was left, he left Joffrey, he never come back. So what it brings to my family is because in Joffrey, it was forbidden to talk about slavery. It was forbidden to talk about what happened there because of the fear. Nobody wants to, you know, be taken away again. So the fear that Alexele came, my family claimed to be the slave descendant, even though everybody knows, they claim that they, you know, according to my grandmother, is putting them in jeopardy. It's jeopardizing their life again. Why will they welcome Alexele? Why will they let Alexele come in? And even though they relate to him, why will they open the door for him? Now Alexele speak English. He's going to go sell them because Africans were traumatized from betraying from each other. Africans betray each other on the time of slavery a lot. Although, yes, so many people, they struggle with it, you know, say African-American do struggle with that, which I do have a lot of thousands of questions with that. Oh, did Africans sell their own people to slavery? They sell us to slavery. It happened, yeah. They do sell their own people to slavery. So when Alexele came, we believe that the Gambians believe that the same thing gonna happen, especially in Joffrey. So they went and they burned all their houses. My grandma said they burned all their house because people were so mad. Why would they open the door for Alexele? Now everybody is closing their doors. But Alexele have a plan because he came with the story that I found my roots and I'm going to look for a buyers, because the story is so unique and it's so powerful. The worldwide, they need to know the story. The way I help myself, I can help others. I can help Africans in the place of Jufre. I can help them too with the trauma they have in their head. I can help them to overcome that trauma. I can help people like Tony who live in America. One day I can make a book and a film. They can read it or they can watch it. Even white people appreciate it more than the blacks do, because it's something that everybody don't know the answer why it happened.
All that stuff, Ancestry.com, and
they all came before after that.
All these things were because of the work that happened with your ancestors.
With my ancestors.
This whole thing now of DNA and finding
everything.
The roots and the commercials that they have.
Everything.
I used to wear a Hilton thing, but now I wear a shirt because
it's all roots.
Years later.
Yes.
After what had been done when your uncle Alex Haley, before he knew he was writing a book, was simply in search to find out who he was and the stories that he had heard.
He is a hero that every American should identify themselves with Alex Haley. Because Alex Haley did something in America that I read that when I was involved, which I'm going to talk about, my involvement in the foundation, how it all came. But we're still talking about, it's a long story. We will not be able to talk about all of it today. But Alex Haley, I want people to understand, especially in Seattle, Alex Haley is died here in Seattle in 1992. He chose Seattle to be his home. And he came to a lot of conferences here in Seattle, and he died at CDU's Medical Center, room 27. So I appreciate the man, what he have done, and what he have left with me, the impact, the help, the hope, through roots, knowing who I am. And I've never get to watch the roots when I was in Gambia. I never read the book. I never watch it because we were not allowed to watch it. And also the television, there's no television in Gambia back then. We just still very among the poorest country in Africa. It was only 1.8 million people live in Gambia. It's a very little tiny place in Africa. But you look at Gambia also have huge impact in the world. Slavery first started in Gambia. But because Gambia is too small, it's been buried. Not too many people will talk about Senegal, Ghana. People will understand they are more. South Africa, African American will know they are more than they will know Gambia because of it's too little. When you look at even Mali, Mali is the king of Africa. Mali is the first first country that university has been built in Africa. It's called Timbuktu. But you look at it today, and nobody will talk about that. It's something that is going to be buried. But just the people that will know is the white, will travel thousands of miles and go there and settle there. It will keep it in darkness on you, so you will not know. So for us, it's very important what Alex Haley have done. It's very important that what's going on in the country. Without roots would not happening. America would be a different country today that we can ever think of. Roots bring something in American life. Roots bring something in African life. Roots bring something that nobody can ever think of it. I can't imagine it. It's so big.
Can you imagine had there not been roots?
If there was no roots, I just cannot even imagine. Nobody can tell you. But Alex Haley later came back. He came back in 1976 with a book that this is what he's been working on.
For 12 years.
For 12 years. No, that's after the 12 years.
That's after the 12
years. Yeah. The research took him 12 years, but after the 12 years, after the 1967, he didn't came back until 1976. So it's been a long time. So when he came back in 1976, he said, this is what I've been working on, because he's trying to get somebody to buy the idea so he can transform the world with the knowledge. He can teach African American where their culture, where their ancestors came from, how do they get themselves here? We don't belong here. This is not our country. So you need to know, why are you here? You know? So he came to do that. So Alex Haley went back. After, in 1977, that's when the television, he came on the TV. And then after the 77, he didn't come back to Gambia until 1979. So he's planning to come back after 1992, that's the year he died. He promised to do so many things there, cultural center. You know, every African American goes there, it's gonna be a big resource center where you're gonna know everything that what happened. And he was building a mosque for the people, because most of the people in the village, they are all Muslim. And he also was going to build schools and health center. And he's going to also have them have electricities, people. The Roots bring so much money in Hollywood. My family did not see anything out of it. Nothing. And Gambia, we did not see anything. But what he gave us the knowledge.
I just want you to say that again to make sure that people understand what we're talking about here. You just, if you don't mind.
Yeah. What I'm saying, that Roots is so popular in this country and around the world. It brings so much fame and so much money. But my family did not see any of that money, or neither Gambia, the country. There are things that have been promised to be happening there. Unfortunately, Alex Haley died short. We never see any of it. You went to Gambia. You went to see my village. Nothing there. It's very popular. The Roots was written 37 languages in the world. From English, Arabic, Chinese, all kind of language you can think of. 37. There is no book. The success Black people should be celebrating, the success they should be all embracing is Roots. Because it's a knowledge of education that it took 40 years before it was remade again. I love Black Panther, it came out and all that stuff. Roots is something that, without Roots, there will never be a Black Panther. The ideas will not even happen. The Hollywood, the Black medias, and all that stuff that's happening, to give us the knowledge, to give us a power, to give us the authorized, to also come out, to say, this is who I am. I am so proud to be who I am.
Wow. I'm going to stop you right there for a second, because I know I'm going to cap some people on the edge of the seats, but I want to bring a couple of our other guests in, and I'm going to bring you back.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you.
What an incredible story. And we're not even close to being finished yet. We haven't started about where you entered the picture.
We can be here a long time.
and we're going to do that about why you were here today. And so, again, now, but don't go anywhere.
I'm not.
All right.
Okay.
So, Afua, would you come on up here and join me, please? Yes.
Momently you start talking, you'll be wrong.
I actually wanted to chime in with your story.
We'll talk a little bit about that, but I want to talk about you right now.
Okay.
All right, and that's why I said we'll all come back, and we'll make that happen too. And I'm sure you will. All right, because time. Funny how time flies when you're having fun. All right. So Lamin will be back, and we'll talk. But I want to talk about you.
Okay.
All right, have a seat. Again, this is Africa Night right here on RainierAvenueRadio.World. Again, just showing the connections between Africa and America and Black Americans, African Americans. We are connected, as we know that we are learning now through Black History Month. Black history is American history, and the history of Black folk before they got to this country is part of our history. So my next guest is Afua. How are you?
I'm good today. Thank you.
So we talked a little bit about, put that up so that they can hear. We talked just very briefly about, who you were. Let's get into that deeper now, okay? And then I want to talk about you growing up. But first, let's talk about Adefua and what you do and what you've done for. I'm not trying to make you sound like you've been here forever, but what you have done for a number of years trying to impact the consciousness of all folks.
Yes, Tony, giving thanks for all things and giving praises to our Creator for making all things possible. When we look at spirit, we really can't see it, but we can feel it. And that's what brings us together, is the spirit. And so I'm giving thanks and praises for that. But yes, I am a Seattleite. I was born in Seattle, born and raised here. In the central area was my childhood upbringing. And then when I became an adult, I moved to Southeast Seattle. But I want to just go back to my childhood a little bit, because that is very clear to me. My mother, she was a Christian woman. My father, he was definitely rooted with Malcolm X, Black Panthers, but he was also military U.S. Coast Guard. So whenever he would come to town, I would get the cultural aspects. And when he was away, I was definitely in church with my committed family every Sunday. And I was always very curious at the age of like 6 and 7 years old about my culture. Where are my roots? Where did I come from? So I always had this antagonistic curiosity about my culture, which wasn't being answered. So fortunately, in the public schools, we had an artist in resident. And this does go back a few years. And he was a world traveler, and he just happened to be booked in our neighborhood school that I attended. And his name was Babatunde Olatunji. And I was just in awe looking at Africa. And from that point, I felt that that was my lifelong connection. And that's what brings my whole world to circumference around Africa. My mother would look and she would have conversations around who her daughter is becoming. Because I would always ask, can I go here? Can I go there? And she was always very supportive. So the first phase of my whole life in Africa was around identity. Because as a child, I was identifying with who I am. And then as I became a teenager, or a preteen, I connected in the community. And now we call it Langston Hughes Performing Arts Institute. But back in the day, it was a synagogue. But it was also being used as community space. And I connected with a few people there that were drumming and from West Africa, from South Africa, and I began performing and learning and studying. And then, after so many years of celebrating and learning who I am, still as an adolescent, I realized that there's nobody my age interested in doing this, because I was always trying to involve my peers. So the next phase became around recruitment. Always trying to get people involved to do what I'm doing, because it was always amazing to learn more and more. And I had said as a young child that I would always be a student of learning about my culture. And I started performing. I mean, it was just so amazing how artists would come to Seattle and they would deposit culture and they would leave. But if I knew anything about it, I was always involved, and my mom would be at my side. And then it just became so amazing. I attended Garfield High School. Well, my elementary school was Madrona. Then I went to Eckstein. I graduated from Garfield High School. But my history teacher, his name was Joe Narte. He was from Ghana.
At Garfield?
At Garfield High School. A few years ago. And myself and a few other friends of mine that I was connected with in the community had spoke with him about it would be so nice to have African dance in the school. So a lot of research, a lot of support came, and guess what? It happened. This happened back in the late 1960s. We had an African dance class at Garfield High School and received history credit. And our teacher was Joe Narte. And we were just so proud of our culture. And then, life took place, and I have 3 children. I have 3 adult children, and I have raised them on stage. They all have performed all their lives. I have 2 daughters that still perform. One still teaches. And it's just been an amazing journey around wanting to know more about who I am and engage the community. So I would say I'm going back a little bit, in 1985 is when I established Adefua. And it was just a dream come true that I have the support around me. And we were opening up audiences. We were creating audiences. We were just making history happen. And then it became to where I loved creating things like every month. And I remember my mom would still at my side, she would say things like, do you have to buy new costumes every month? Yeah, Mom. Because it was a make or break kind of thing. And eyes were opening, families were engaging with knowing more about who we are. At this time, I was working at the African American Academy School. I was there for 11 years, and we created culture within that school. There were hundreds of parents that enrolled their students in that school because we had created culture in that school for families to have in-home culture and for the school to have its own culture. And the center of the curriculum was Africa. It was an amazing experience. And so then moving into my 3rd phase of my life, I really developed implementing programming, just everywhere I could. Have history, have talent, will travel. And I toured, I traveled around the world, learning, performing, teaching about Africa. And at the same time, Seattle celebrated diversity. And they still do, and I love it. Because when we talk about Africa, Africa is totally diverse. When we talk about multiculturalism, we have multiculturalism just within Africa. Because we have so many dialects, we have so many histories, we have so many stories that are rich, that are so rich. And I know, Lamin, you were talking about slavery. And I just have one note on the contrary, is that I don't believe that our people were slaves. I think they were enslaved, but they were not called slaves. And I just want to put that out there that, we're learning all the time about how to love each other and how to be careful with our words because we are the future and we celebrate that all the time and we're grateful. But it's also important that we share this information, and that's why my first word to you today, Tony, is that I'm really happy to be here. I remember meeting you back in 1994 when we started the nonprofit organization, Adefua Cultural Education Workshop. My good friend Twanda Hill, she says, "Oh, I have a person who'll be really good to help." And that's how I came in contact with Tony B. So I thank you very much. But I wanted to also say that throughout my life of learning and celebrating about Africa and Africa within me and our people, we were very blessed to have several opportunities within the community where we would offer classes. We would have 4 to 5 annual events every year where people would look forward to it and they were happy to celebrate and bring their families, such as we would have a Black History Month program, extravaganza, that's always open to the community. And then all the work that we would do in the schools and in the community, we would have an annual recital, so where they would culminate their experiences. And it could be from drumming, dance, art, visual, literary, we used to call it homemaking, but now it's like life skills, but learning how to cook African food, learning how to sew clothes that look like, their African clothing. And we started implementing all these different components into schools. And then we would have the students culminate. The families were involved because they had to sew the costumes and they had to provide transportation. And it was just great. And then we also have celebrated over 30 years of running our camps. We have 2 summer camps every year. One would be a overnight. Every year we would alternate between 3 to 7 days overnight camp up in the mountains. And this was so much fun because we would study all day and we would party all night. And it was all around the culture. And that was geared more toward administrators and teachers and families. And then the second part of the camp would be an 8-week cultural day camp. And we ran that for like maybe 26 years. And then the city of Seattle got a hold of what we were doing and said, "Hey, you want to come and do it for us?" And I said, absolutely. Because also to let you know that these programs were ran out of my home. And I remember one time we had a community panel and I was asking for support around a building space. And one of our elders who we honor and will be celebrating her birthday this weekend, Dr. Maxine Mims, had said to me, "Don't say you don't have space because you're operating it out of your home. So talk about enhancing what you already have." And then we grew even stronger. And then we have the Odunde Festival, which we celebrated for over 30 years. It's an African harvest celebration that took place always in November as we give thanks to the Creator for life. And, it's just many ways to give thanks. And we would teach youth and families how to do this on stage, in the classroom, and in their homes. Also at the same time running a rites of passage program for young girls. And that happened every year for 21 years. And so I'm just happy just to still sit here and say that all these things have happened in the community. Another program that we still celebrate is Kwanzaa. Every year, it's a time for us to really go into a history about connecting Africa from the Kiswahili side. And that's always a celebration that we look forward to. The Seattle Center, they were open to celebrating all cultures. And so simultaneously, we would have the community celebrations of Kwanzaa, but then Adefua always made sure that there was another component open to the community, to the general public, where they can also learn about Kwanzaa as well. And so, we're just always wanting to open up doors. And currently, right now, we're teaching free classes at Life Enrichment Bookstore on Tuesday evenings. And we want people to come in. So 6 o'clock is for youth and 7:30 is adults, and we have artists. We have a lot of artists that would love to come when they know that you're going to be there. Right now, we're there. So if you're out in the viewing audience and you're an artist and you would love to come and experience arts and culture and the community that needs support, please just come on out. And you don't have to call or email, just be there. Life Enrichment Bookstore on Rainier Avenue in Columbia City.
And we are RainierAvenueRadio.World, celebrating Black History Month. My guest joined me, Afua Kouyate. Again, I told you just an amazing story. I'm sitting here listening like everybody else is. Let's talk a little bit about, let me get some more information. Again, if you are listening on our streaming radio station, you're probably on our website. Go to our website and you'll find out what we've got going on Monday and Tuesday. If you're listening on TuneIn, definitely go to the website and you'll find out more information. If you are watching us now on Facebook, you can also go to our website at RainierAvenueRadio.World and just find out more about who we are, what we do in the community. And we are the community radio station serving Rainier Avenue, serving Rainier Valley, and serving all of our communities. We've got over 40 programs that are airing by members of our community. We offer you essentially 4 buckets of information: talk shows, music shows. We have a sports department. We also have youth programming. We air programming in multiple languages. We're essentially, what I tell people is we are a reflection of this community. If you were to hold a mirror up to this community, you would see Rainier Avenue Radio. That's all we are. That's what we do. We just show who we are. And as an end result of that, we have wonderful, marvelous, multicultural, diverse programming. And I think that anyone out there who goes to Rainier Avenue Radio will find something that you're interested in. And so in February, we're celebrating Black History Month, proudly, unashamedly, and we are offering 20 events, 20 programs in 28 days. They said it couldn't be done, because you have a problem putting together one event. Well, you know what? We said we want to show a broad spectrum of things. We're here in this community. This is what we want to do. And tonight is Africa Night.
Yes.
And again, I can't understate the importance of Africa in this whole equation of Black history. And so what I wanted to ask you, Afua, was growing up, and you just said you felt this desire, you heard, and then, but at that time, there weren't resources like yours. There weren't as many places where you could easily find influences. So how did you do this? How did you find resources? Where did you get the information from? Where did you quench the thirst that you had to learn more about Africa?
Well, I don't remember. What I don't totally remember. What I do remember is what I speak about is at my elementary school, we did have an artist in resident program. And as I learned to appreciate it more, then I was very grateful and looked for it, and it just wasn't there. But
I'm not tripping that you don't remember,
yeah,
because it's just part of what you were doing.
Yes. And I just never stopped. I don't remember the initial connection in the community, but I will share with you that where it was the synagogue, and then it became Paul Robeson Theater, and then it became Langston Hughes Theater, and then it evolved, where now it still stands as a cultural monument. That is where we went for learning. We also went to Black Arts West Theater back in the day. That was just 3 blocks from my childhood home. But the focus there was more about theatrics and singing, and I really wanted to dance. And so, but those were still places in the community where we were able to go to. And so an off location to Black Arts West Theater was what we called back in the day the Camp Firehouse. And so they were operating classes at that location as well. So there were a few places, but it wasn't many, and you had to be in the inn to have it. And I was just happy to be there. And I do remember that feeling that I was just, one of the youngest ones there, because there were always like older participants. But, and I'm very comfortable filling that gap, as I am now, just still branching people. As I don't know if you know this, but, we now take annual trips to Africa. Yeah, so we have a 20-day excursion every year in December where we will take interested people to Guinea. This is where our family is, and it's a part of this wonderful history that also connects into the West African region. Guinea is in the same region as the Manding area, where that history goes back to the 12th century, where we talk about King Sundiata, which could be a whole nother day to come and talk. But it's a wonderful experience that we still bridge as an opportunity for people to learn about culture, about their culture, about someone else's culture, and just even having a great experience. 20 days in Africa. You will learn the language, you will learn dance, music, you will study an apprenticeship, you will have lots of experience in the different villages, and this is just something that we do every year as a way of saying, come to Africa, because this is your home. Yeah, it's an amazing experience. And Southeast Seattle has so much multiculturalism, and I haven't seen an alliance around it other than offering programming like what you're doing for us today. So I just received a little support from the Office of Arts and Culture to put together an African Arts Alliance. And so at this time, I'm asking the viewers out there, if you're an artist, or if you're a lover of arts, if you're into theatrics, if you're interested in marketing for the Arts Alliance, we really need you to come in and be involved. We want to bring all the African artists together to receive resources. So May 12th, we're going to have an arts fair, and it's going to be resources, and it's going to be artists, entertainment. It's just going to be amazing. And really, it's going to be what the community wants it to be. So we really need you to come out. We'll be at Othello Park, but I think Tony will be able to give us an opportunity to share how you can reach me a little later. But the African Arts Alliance is where we're looking at the future again. How do we support the artists that come here, whether they're immigrants or they're non-immigrants, and they're artists and they need resources.
All right. Afua, thank you. And
You're
I
welcome.
want you to come back up here now,
Yes.
because we're not done talking. But thank you for sharing, what
Yes.
you've shared with so far. What an amazing story. Thank you for being part of our
You're
community
welcome.
and continuing.
You're welcome. I do have one more thing I want to say quickly.
Yeah.
My husband is one of the most amazing men from Guinea, West Africa, that everyone should know about. He is a Kouyate. He is from the big Kouyate family in West Africa. He is a Jolly. And the Jollies are the ones that hold the culture of a region of people, and they sing these stories, like the story of Lamin Jatta, my husband. It's his responsibility to hold that culture. So every time he sees Lamin Jatta, he sings to him, because the community is what is considered like the Jatigi, the supporters. And my husband is the only Jali in this whole region. And we want you to know that he's here. There is a Jali here, and he's open for all occasions. And we just want to be able to have him come back on the show, and he'll sing to you, Tony.
All right.
His name is Afua Kouyate.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're going to make that happen.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Afua.
You're welcome.
My
God bless.
pleasure. And don't go anywhere.
I'm not.
All right. You can get warm over it.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Tharpe, would you come up here, please? Once again, you are listening to RainierAvenueRadio.World. This is our celebration of Black History Month. Lamin Jatta is still here. Earlier was talking with us about Kunta Kinteh, and as a 9th generation descendant, his experiences and the stories that were told from his side of it. And then also as a descendant of Alex Haley, he was able to really share some wonderful information with us that if you missed, don't worry, you'll be able to go back and check it again. But he's going to be back up here because he still has a story of his own to tell. But right now, I'm talking with Mr. Jim Tharpe, and I'm sure that, Mr. Tharpe, one of the things that you can identify with is the tradition throughout African history of sharing information orally and making sure that that information is exchanged from generation to generation, and that traditions are passed down, and that it's a way of understanding who you are and knowing who you are historically by the passing of these oral traditions, passing orally of traditions and history from within the family. And you yourself are part of a tradition because your family collected quilts. And if for those who weren't familiar about the quilt codes, do you want to talk about that? Do you want me to talk? You want to talk about the quilt codes?
You can go ahead.
Okay. So there are these things called quilt codes. Now, academia will tell you that they don't exist. But as we know, things are passed down orally. And because they aren't written down does not mean that they did not exist. And I don't think that Lamin would tell you that he does not believe what was told to him because it was written down. He probably believes it more because it was told to him. And so within quilts were used as a way to share information with others who were enduring slavery. What was the passageway to safety? Was it a safe harbor? What was taking place? Which direction you wanted to go? Was this a safe house? Now, this intricate way of communicating was done through essentially patterns written into quilts. And these quilts would be hung on the clothesline. And then, you know, the folks who were, whatever they were doing, they would know by reading and taking a look at these quilts at what this messaging was. And so this tradition was passed on, and of course it wasn't written down because at the time, if it was written down, you would be killed. I mean, it was totally secret. So for me, it is amazing part of history that this level of communication was maintained by people who were enslaved, but they were still able to find a way to communicate, share information, and to guide each other to safety and provide information about safe harbors and safe houses. So as slavery ended, some families continued to keep the tradition of quilting. Quilting's done in many different cultures, but African-American history of quilting, some families kept that, and they included in their quilting some of these codes. So as time went on, you know, they may not have been as close to the original messages that were life and death that were used in the quilt codes, but they were pretty close. Mr. Tharpe's family owns quite a collection of quilts that date back to mid 1800s
Yes.
in some instances. And so as you get quilts that began to be made in the 60s, maybe they would lose some of the, in the 70s, but then you go back to the 50s and 40s and 30s and they have more integrity into what they were saying. And depending on the family, they may veer off a little bit as well. And so that's why academia says, well, it doesn't all match up. But we know this to be true and we know it to be part of our history. And so I'm excited to have you on the show, Mrs. Tharpe, to talk about your quilt collection and your family history.
Well, first of all, I'm excited just to be here from the standpoint of hearing a story that started in Africa. And I, too, had been in Africa once before or some time ago and met a storyteller. But getting back to your story, what happened, and the people in Africa as kept certain secrets. Well, my family did not come from royalty as yours did. And it did come from one of the other types of families that was just trying to make it from the boat into a place where they could be safe. If I could go back to when I first started to understand the ability or the willingness to make quilts, family quilts, it goes back to when I was probably 3 or 4 years old, before Emmett Till was killed in Chicago. I too am from Chicago, so going back to the South was always a struggle because I could never understand why it would be 7 or 8 cars rolling together going into Tennessee versus just our family. It was like a collection, a bus load of people going one direction for safety. Anyway, just to give you a little idea about the slave quilt, when I would go back and visit my grandparents, and they lived in Tennessee, a small town called Paris, Tennessee, there was a death in one of the family members, one of my family members, and I can barely remember what had happened except being on a horse carriage with my cousins going to this house in the backwoods where there was absolutely, for me, I was very fearful of just the darkness of it all. So I go into the house and there's people there looking at my uncle who had passed. But the one thing you could see was these quilts, because the quilt became a very important, shall we say, artifact, not only of the family, but it showed that you had something and you had it on the bed. It was a type of art. So from that point forward, the one thing that I carried away from that scenario, not only was it the people, but it was also what was there. And besides the body, I saw something very beautiful, being the quilt. Going on a little bit farther in my life, I then got to a point where Roots was playing. And at that time, I had a couple of quilts. And that whole image of understanding history, understanding where you come from, became more of an important challenge for me than just a word or a piece of paper saying, this is who you are. I was fortunate enough that my parents and their parents and my parents before them, my great-great-grandparents coming out of slavery, had the initiative to leave certain things so it could be passed down. It was not verbal, it was about what they could produce and pass it down through the centuries, literally. So I have, for example, a picture of my great-great-grandfather who was 9 years old, who was allowed to live with his mother, he and his brother, which was highly unusual, up to 9 years old. Now, when slavery was over, the three of them basically just moved off the plantation or became sharecroppers for the same, shall we say for the same master. And at that point, those two boys, for whatever reason, were able to get ahead, shall we say, because of their grandfather. Now, in the meantime, they're constantly making these quilts. And my great-great-grandmother, who was in slavery, comes out and she has her patterns, our pieces, and then she passes it on to her daughter-in-law, who still remembers slavery, because this is like 1880, 1890 in that area. So they're producing quilts that are then passed down, and my family's extremely fortunate that they were passed down in fairly good shape and still being used. So over a period of years, I collected quilts from all the females that were in my family going back as far as I could, as I could get to. And it's extended from 1867 to 1970. So when I hear the story about what happened in Africa and keeping secrets, and then I look at the quilts, and one of the quilts has a green piece on it that basically represents Louisiana and people coming in from Louisiana, going north to, in my case, the Tennessee. And in my particular family, they stayed there with the plantation owner up until 1930s, actually. So I understand the history and the need for history to understand what you had to go through my quilts, because every day I look at my quilt signs, I see more than one generation. I see several generations, and I also see what they've sent me, which was, this is another piece of art that represented slavery and how to escape it.
Okay, tell me about compiling the quilts. And you said you at some point had to begin to say, okay, this is of relevance and importance to you. So talk about at that point the whole concept of quilting and compiling these quilts and what that meant and what you began to find out about this thing called quilting.
Well, I wish I could say that I was really enthusiastic about being a quilter. That's not really the case. What I was enthusiastic about was watching people who made those quilts and what really went into them. When you look at a quilt, and for some of my quilts, they're called quilting bees, where they would have 3 or 4 people together making this quilt as a form of recreation, which was totally different, shall we say, from one person making it in, shall we say, in the 1880s. It's a totally different style, shall we say. But in the quilting bee, they would use old patterns that were from slavery. And I'm talking about early 1900s at that point, 1910, 1920, and that. They were still using those same hidden codes. And going back to roots, the only thing I could deal with in terms of my personal family was these beautiful pieces of artwork that all had a different message. And from that perspective, that was my energy to continue keeping them and trying to save as many as possible.
And so recently, it became more important to you to start sharing this information with other people.
Yes. It had gotten to a point where I was introduced to some people who were involved with quilting across the country, and they happened to see my quilts. And it became one of the rages that they wanted to sell the patterns, they wanted to, duplicate them. And a reality to me came into the fact that I needed to show them to as many people as possible. And I was very fortunate, and I met you, and you helped me out with Amazon and other places that I could show the quilts, and they could be held in the same type of honor as I see them.
All right. So you guys aren't going to believe this, but it's almost been 2 hours. So I would like Lamin and Afua to come back up and join us up here, if you don't mind. So I want to get everybody back up here again, and then also have some dialogue between us. Mr. Tharpe, stay up here, and come on back up here again and scoot in here a little closer to us, and give you this here, sir, and Afua, I will give you this. And I hate to rush you through this. I don't want to rush you through this.
Yes.
I'm going to leave a little time at the end. But we have got to get to your story as well and how you fit into the Kunta Kinteh Foundation. We know your history now. But to get to the point where you began to say, well, wait a minute, I have a role in this. I'm not just a descendant, you know, yeah. But I have a role in this history of my family. And so, again, my guest, Mr. Jatta, let's talk about that, man. Let me give you the time to share that story with us about how you became engaged, in addition to being a relative, yeah. With taking up this mantle.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity, and this is a continuation of the story. How it get to me is that,
James, just want to make sure. You know what? In the meantime, take this one. Okay. Oh, no, we're good. Oh, here we go. I mean, we're good.
Okay. How it get to me? My grandmother already have a prophecy on me too. Since I was very little, they know already what I'm gonna be. Since I don't know, 5 years old, they always tell me that you're gonna be in America. You're gonna be talking to millions of people, thousands of people. They already tell me that. And your story, everybody gonna see you all over the world. So I never take that. You're from Africa, you've been to Africa, you see how Africa look like, so a little boy, from Jufre with no shoes, walking on the street, you're telling him big dreams like that. How he's gonna take that? I didn't even dream to finish the, primary school, not even a kindergarten yet. So I start hearing those stories. But it was later on that I grew with it also to humble myself, because like story like that, it can make you overcome your own, like being proud and not taking what you're not supposed to be doing. And then it can lead you to, bad influence, because you'll be like, oh, everybody love me, so I can do whatever I want to do. You can become like so spoiled. They leave me with my own consent. They leave me with myself. I become like so independent. I become like researching on my own. I become in the jungle guy. I become like, I don't take any nonsense from anyone. So I'm always with the family matters, family comforts, and I'm always very angry some of the things. I grow very angry, So especially when I see white people came to my home, we still welcome people all over the world. When they tell them the story, they will clap. And then I was like, I am here hurting. Nobody feel my hurt. Nobody feel that I'm angry. So only one person that feel that I'm so angry that what I am thinking is only my grandma. Always she will be sitting down in the middle of people, but she always focusing on me. When I wake up, when I get up and then go on the sides and I sit down, they will come up to me. Are you okay? I said, yeah, I'm okay. I know what you're thinking, but there's more to your story. Now the story I tell you now is your story. Turn it to be yours. It's not hers. It's not anybody. It's now you. I know that's what you're thinking. From that childhood, I have empathy for people in the village. And I also have sympathy for people in the village. We grow up very, I see a lot of people poor. We don't grow up having money. We grow up very famous, but we are not grow up, being rich. But I always find resources on my own. I start business. I was 12 years old, and I was doing very good on my business, But I've seen Africa.
At 12?
At 12 years old. And I see Africa, there's a lot of resources, so I take advantage on those resources. There's so many other kids, so I start leading. I become a leader. I have organization. I have little boys that I grow. I recruit them. I take them in the booths. I train them how to be standing for themselves. I stand against bullying. because Africa, there's a lot of bullying and all that stuff. So I teach them how to fight for themselves, how to protect themselves. So, and we did very well. And I would tell them, if you have to kill somebody, you have to even do it to protect yourself, because it was so bad, you know. But the science, you know, following me, I grew up with it until 2000. I know she's been telling me most of all her life, but 2014, that's when she died. But before she died was on April. And then I went to Jufre, and then we sit down, like having a conversation as usual. We had a breakfast, we ate a breakfast, and she grabbed me. And then she said, I know how you take this story, how you love your family. Everybody that knows me know my family comforts. You know, I have a voice in my family since I was very little. When they have a family meeting, a child don't talk, but they will always give me an opportunity to say something. When my uncles, they have problems with their wives or family matters from family to family, they have a family meeting, the kids are always left behind. They will not let even us to go there. But she will always, they said, bring Lamin in. I will sit there and I will not say anything until they allow me to say. So every time I say something, they won't tell me you do great or you do bad, but they always take whatever I tell them. So I grew up with that, you know, because they were preparing me for today, because they don't want me to get too proud and also to get too spoiled as a child, because you have to, even a child, you have to treat a child as a child in a way, step by step. But they leave me with that maturity to, you know, build myself, fulfill myself. 2014, we're sitting down and she said, you realize where, you know, who you are, and you know where you belong, and where you came from, and you're always gonna die with those principles. But the story of Kinteh, if it died today because of you. If the story lived, it lived today because of you. At that point, and I said, why did you say that? He said, you came to see me today, but maybe you're never gonna see me again, and you and I will never have this conversation again, and it will last today. I said, why did you say that? We were 3 people sitting there. I was the 4th person. All those 3 people are dead today. That's my uncle's wife who was passing by said, you know, in the Mandinka culture, when you say something, she said, grab a shan on the floor and they put it on your tongue and put it on your forehead. That means I hear you, because you talk about that maybe I am ahead of you. I'm not going. So they take it seriously. That's like a stereotype. They don't like to, you know, especially when an elderly person talk to you, they don't want you to, you know. So I get up and I left. It was later on, and she died in the same year. About a couple of months, and then she died. I never take anything serious, and I traveled back to United Kingdom. I was in UK. I was doing business. I was doing good. I was in Gambia, was involved in Gambia, helping people. I always love helping people. I've been doing that since I was very little, you know. So my organization setting up, I probably set it up since I was very little, at 12 years old, because it's been going on for so long, you know. So 2010, I start coming up. The dreams are coming to me so bad, you know. I was having so much dreams, and it's like, you will never have your peace until you do what you're supposed to do. We're having so many family problems, people trying to even claim that we are not the descendants of Kinteh. The Gambia government, we have a dictator been in power for 22 years. So we're having problems. And then I was here crying and I'm feeling for my family. My grandma is dead, but the family story still live, because it's, you know, the kids are, you know, her daughter is there, her son was there, so they take the lead. And I was like, why will I even have to be the one to take the lead? I'm just a little last bottom person. But I was called to lead the family. I was called to do my duty. And I know if I don't do my duty, I am letting them down. And I know not only letting them down, I will never have peace in the world. My life, I will never have peace. And the 2010 was the most, because I was going through divorce on 2010. It was not easy for me. And then I was working for the state of Washington. I get injured at my work.
And very successful.
Yeah.
By the way.
Yes.
At what you were doing.
Yeah.
You didn't have to do any of this.
I was good.
You were making money.
Yeah.
And well respected.
Yeah.
And life was good.
Life was good. I'm always, creating business. I create a cleaning company and I create a, security company. So I send people for guards, bodyguards, private bodyguards, like celebrities and stuff, going to the concert, stadium concert, we send people there. Club bands in, I send my people there. So I was doing good. I don't need to be on this mess because I know black people, number one, is going to be a fight. I'm going to have now hate within the family because everybody not going to love you. Everybody not going to be on your side, So I said, I don't want to deal with that. If I want help, I can send money. If somebody get healed, I can send them money to go to the hospital. If somebody die, I can help them with burial. If somebody school fees, feeding, I can help, and which I've been known of doing. But I don't want to go extra, take the leadership. I'm too young. I don't want to do it. But, she told me that you are set. Go do it. 2010, I set it up. I said, I have to do something now. Then I start coming to Rainier Avenue, which is here, to the bookstore not far from here. I start talking to the community. That's when I met you around the time. And, I've been seeing things, and I was like, this is who I am, the family. I remember one time you even get to the complex, because people are trying to say, no, Kinteh story, because they judging Alex Selling, because that's, like, oh, Ruth wasn't true. He tells somebody's story and he got fined. People like you are the one who came in the community and said, I went to Jufre. I know his family. He's telling the truth. Sito says that. I didn't even know how.
So you were confused, but you actually went to
Jufre.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went on a trip to Jufre because I wanted to learn the African American experience that has been told about Kunta Kinteh. I went with an anthropologist, Ranoko Rashidi. He was taking a group of people, and it was about 12 of us. And we got on a small boat from the Gambia, and they said it would take about 90 minutes on that boat to get over to the island. Well, about 3 hours later, I still didn't see anything out there. It actually took 5.5 hours in that boat. But the feelings that we all had in that boat, on that water, was just excruciating. It was very painful. You can feel all the bodies, all of our people that have died, that their souls, their spirits are at the bottom of that water that we're riding on. It was very emotional. But once we got to Jofre, the hospitality was beautiful. I met all of your family. There's a museum there. There's a Kunta Kinteh cafe. We ate there. And then we did transition. We took the smaller boat and we went over to St. James Island. And we saw the dungeons. We saw where they filmed the movie Roots. We were on the soil. We cried and we returned back.
So unfortunately, again, we're almost out of time. We can do this. But I want you to talk about the Kunta Kinteh Foundation, what you're doing there, what your goals are, what you would like to see happen with the Kunta Kinteh Foundation.
Kunta Kinteh Foundation, when I set it up, is to contribute. What should I do to contributing back into his legacy? Because the legacy the story that changed me, I wanted to change others. What I know, I want to share my knowledge, what I know, others to know the same. So it's open to everybody. It's for everybody, black people. This is our organization. This is a research center that, things like what we're doing here, allowing the Kunta Kinteh Foundation coming in. It's a foundation that belongs to every black. To take them back, going to the continent, to see, you go to Guinea, you go to Senegal, you go to Gambia, just go to Africa, period. Just go to West Africa, go to Africa, East Africa. Africa is your home. come there and see. And the island is also there. That where Kunta Kinteh and many of 24 million slaves who transport from the James Island to America. That place is still there. The houses are still there. Go and get the healing and reconciliation on your own self. So the foundation is here. I want everyone to, who are listening. We wanted to have this conversation. We are running out of time, but I want more people to question me. Their involvement, what can we do to change the life here in America and Africa? How do we offer the education? How do we teach people, about their history, their culture? What Afua doing is all part of what I do, because it's a history and culture.
And they want us to come back. That's one of the things that they said to us before we left, is this is your home. We want African Americans to come, to know the history, to see it, and to help. Because we have an obligation with our children, we have an obligation with our elders, and this is their message.
I'm bringing the Minister of Tourism in Gambia. He's coming to Seattle in May, because we do the event called Global Celebration of Hope, which the entire community has to welcome him, because he's the man who gave the certification and citizenship to the citizen of this country to go back to reclaim their citizenship back in Africa. Yes. This is your homeland. This is your continent. There's so much beauty there that people here don't know about. Watching CNN and Fox News and all those things that are happening in America, your continent is beautiful. And people that are listening, they need to know. And I love Seattle and Black people that live in Seattle. Many of them also travel, which I found it very interesting. A lot of them travel to Africa. They have a lot of connection. When I came here, I feel like home. That's make me to choose Seattle to be the foundation headquarters, because a lot of them feel their Africanism. They already know who they are. A lot of people here, they love culture, especially this Rainier Avenue Street. I met a lot of people that says, I've been to Africa more than 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So I want to let more people to go. Yes.
So now that the Alex Haley roots, the Kunta Kinteh Foundation headquarters is right here
in Seattle.
In Seattle.
Yes.
All right. See, I bet you didn't know that.
No.
I want to give everybody, as we're wrapping up here, an opportunity just to quickly say some final words. I'll start with you, Mr. Tharpe, if you just want to say something final.
I wish everyone, your listening audience could have been here. This has been an excellent show, and history and understanding where we've come from is just a marvelous thing to recognize.
Thank you. www.KOUYATEARTS.com. KouyateArts.com. Thank you.
Okay, and thank you for being here. And Mr. Jatta, final words that you'd like to tell our audience.
Brother Tony, I want to thank you so much. I want to thank Seattle. I want to thank the radio station for this opportunity. This is our radio station. This is our community radio station. When I heard a Rainier community radio station, I thought probably it belongs to somebody else. You guys know what I'm talking about. But this is us. And we're celebrating Black History Month here. Our history did not start with Black History Month. It's been happening before. But if we choose this month to celebrate our history, to bring us together, to also reflect what our ancestors, what they did, what they've been through, to commemorate that, to celebrate that, that's an honor. And I thank you for being part of that. And I thank you for knowing you. And I look forward to the future, what we're going to do to change life and to change in this world. And I really, really appreciate you a lot. Thank you.
All right, and we will make that happen. This has been another Black History Month celebration right here at RainierAvenueRadio.World. I'm Tony B. On behalf of my guests, Mr. Jim Tharpe, Afua Kouyate, and Lamin Jatta, thank you for joining us. I'm sure that you had a good time. Again, Afua is offering free classes at Lim's Bookstore.
Yeah, Lim's Bookstore.
Right on Rainier Avenue on Tuesdays. Yes. Just free, drumming and dancing.
Yes.
And we have 2 days left if you want to come down and take a look at the Jim Tharpe Antiquity Collection. And Lamin, we're not done. You're not going anywhere. We're going to start to do stuff together.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay, see, I got him on tape now.
Yes. Yes, definitely. Definitely.
And we'll be doing more things together. We'll get more of you on the air. So thanks to all of you out there joining us. Again, on behalf of all of Rainier Avenue Radio, we'll be back in a couple days. That's it. That's all the time that we have. That's going to do it for the kid. It's me, Tony B, saying, remember, whether you believe you can or whether you believe you can't, you are probably right. I'm out. Peace.